Welcome, everyone, to a special breaking news edition of the Information's TITV. We are bringing you this special episode to unpack some exclusive reporting. The Information was first to report just moments ago that SpaceX is telling investors that it is aiming for a 2026 IPO. It is a big story. And so I want to bring on Katie Roof, our Deputy Bureau Chief of Venture Capital, who just broke the news. Katie, it's a big story and one that we've been watching for a long time. What do we know about the new IPO plans for SpaceX?
Sure. And so what we're hearing is that they're aiming to go public mid to late next year. And what's especially newsworthy is that they're no longer planning to spin off Starlink. This was one source called it, this would be the whole shebang. The whole
Right.
company would be going public, and not just their satellite internet business, but also their core space launch business.
Right. Now, tell me, did this surprise you? Because I feel like we've been hearing for a long time. I mean, these tender offers, they just keep marching along month after month, right?
Yes, I mean, technically every 6 months for several years now, they've been sticking to a schedule, and reporters like me have been marking our calendars to try to scoop all of them. And so it was every June, every December. And, it looks like they are now telling investors, you know what, there is a liquidity event in sight. You don't have to just keep hoping that there will be other investors to buy your shares. The market will make your stock liquid, and you could in theory sell your shares there, which is really what investors usually want to hear.
I'm curious, do you think this has to do more with the market, or is it more about how much money SpaceX might need? I mean, we keep hearing about the IPO market as a fundraising event, and the issue at hand has been, well, can you get the money that you need in the private markets, or do you need to go public? Does this feel like an acknowledgement from SpaceX and saying we need to go public to get the money, or is it really just that the market is opening?
So my understanding is that they're actually currently profitable. So it's not that they're bleeding cash, but IPO does provide you currency if you want to make acquisitions, if you want to make investments. As many people have noted, sometimes Elon invests and buys other Elon related companies, or he could buy other unrelated companies from his portfolio. Also, just at a certain point, investors want to know there's an end in sight. I mean, you get to a point, and certainly at this point, there's a lot of capital in the private markets. All the high net worth individuals all around the world have figured out you can invest pre IPO, and they're doing it. But at a certain point, you want to tap retail, because do you really want to go public after you have tapped out everyone and you're like, okay, there's no one left? And that's not a good first impression on the market.
Right.
And so I think SpaceX and others will reach that realization that you don't want to go public when there's no room for growth.
Right. I want to go back to the plans to, or the plans now not to spin off Starlink. Can you explain to us anything you know about why that was the plan initially, why they might have pivoted on the plan?
So at one point, Starlink was perceived as the main cash cow. And so it was, they didn't want to burden shareholders by linking together a business that was weighing it down. But my understanding is SpaceX core launch business has improved in recent years. In particular, they have a lot of good government contracts, and so it's no longer seen as dragging down, the business. Not that it was ever dragging down per se. There was always a lot of investment interest, but dragging down in terms of its financials, it's no longer
Hmm.
seen as that. And I think also there's just so much demand. I mean, you look, and just months ago, I had, at my last employer, I broke the news that they were valued at 400 billion, which at the time was the largest ever private company. Now they've just doubled that for 800 billion. And so I think that they feel like there's no shortage in sight to investment demand, and retail would only broaden that.
Right. And I'm curious, as you talk about this with your sources, what impact would an IPO like this, or even talks of an IPO of this scale, what do you think this has on other late stage private companies? Not the least of which are all the private companies that we've been waiting to go public. I mean, you've got the Stripes, the Bite Dances. There's a whole group. I think our colleague Corey Weinberg I can't remember what the name was. He gave a name to these 7 private companies that they don't need to. Databricks is another one. What's going to happen to this group?
So it's funny. I mean, some of them have been talking about an IPO forever, like Databricks, and then they keep raising money. And so, as I noted in a newsletter actually just yesterday, that it is helpful when you're fundraising to talk about a future IPO. And so that is possible that they're doing that. But it's also, I'm not just hearing it from investors. My understanding is they are, in fact, in touch with the IPO industry about taking steps. As for these other companies, it's a case by case basis. Some of them have a personal aversion to taking companies public. Others are a little spooked by, the rocky launches of many companies in 2021. But yeah, some of them like OpenAI and Anthropic are considering an IPO, and it's no secret that Sam Altman is a rival slash maybe enemy of Elon Musk, and it wouldn't shock me if he wants to go public first.
Right, right. Well, and the last question I think, which is, it's not one that we probably would have talked about a couple years ago, but it's one that I think is very relevant to IPO discussions today, is the appetite that retail investors would have for any company that goes public. It depends a lot on the narrative that you have, and we see crypto companies because it's crypto, right? I mean, meme stock or not, the narrative is there, right? And they have this huge pop. I don't know. SpaceX, I look at it, it's a company, it's Elon's company, it's a space company. I kind of think maybe when it does go public, there might be some appetite for a name like this.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question that the meme stock type person is interested in this kind of company. They tend to be Elon Musk fanboys, a lot of them. But look, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where the markets are heading in
Right.
2026. If I did, that would be amazing. But certainly there is that perception that this would be one of those types of companies that crowd would be into.
Great. Well, Katie, it was a great scoop. I want to thank you for making time to come on, and I trust there's more to uncover, so we'll let you get back to your reporting. That is Katie Roof, our Deputy Bureau Chief of Venture Capital. I want to thank you for joining us for this special edition of TITV. We will be back in your feeds on Monday, at least unless news breaks, in which case we'll bring you another special episode. Reminder, we stream every day at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye for now.